Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Syracuse Basketball Postgame here on Facebook and YouTube, presented by Krause Health. My name is Brent alongside my colleague and partner, Mr. Mike Curtis. We are talking about, Mike, no way to put this, pretty ugly game for Syracuse at Virginia. The Cavs move up to number 8 in the country today in the latest Associated Press poll. And they pretty much kind of like the big brother, little brother thing. They kind of held their hand on Syracuse's head the whole game. Defense not present for Syracuse tonight, particularly from the three-point line, as Virginia moved the ball with ease. On the other side, Syracuse couldn't crack the Virginia defense. And the most points that a Tony Bennett team has ever put up against a Jim Boeheim zone, and the final score 81-58. We do welcome those of you that are live here, but just a reminder, we do put this on our Syracuse Orange Sports YouTube page, archived on Facebook. You can find it on my recap on syracuse.com as well, in case you miss us live here. So, Mike, you just came out of that Virginia locker room before we went live. You were telling me it was a good versus evil kind of thing. What did Tony Bennett and the players have to say about this one?
Yeah, just came out of the Virginia post-game press conference, and Tony Bennett was asked, has he figured out how to beat the Syracuse zone? And he said he doesn't think so, but it's always a good battle when they go against Syracuse. 8-2 over the last 10 games, and he kind of said it's a really good zone team versus a really good man-to-man team. And then he calls it the battle of good and evil, good versus evil, with good being man-to-man, evil.
And a lot of Syracuse fans might agree with Tony Bennett on that one. It was a night where the zone just not effective. Quincy Guerrier even saying after the game, Syracuse forgot who the shooters were, where they were. It was blinding. When we go over the stats, you're going to see a Grand Canyon gap in assists between Virginia and Syracuse. And look, Mike, when you play Virginia, you know you're going to get this efficient offense. You're going to get an efficient defense. But this Virginia team a little different. And Sam Hauser is the key name that's different there. Comes over from, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Where did he transfer from? Marquette. Comes over from Marquette.
Yeah.
And pretty interesting tidbit about him in the postgame you'll tell us about shortly, but he was open all night for threes. I don't think there was one contested three that he had to face, maybe one or two. And Jay Huff, too much in the middle for Syracuse. He has a career high. But tell us what was going on with Hauser, which would seem to maybe block a path from the big game that he had, but certainly didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Tony Bennett said in the post-game presser that Hauser actually had pre-game back spasms before the game when he was warming up. So he wasn't sure how he was going to come out and perform. And for him to come out and make 7 3-pointers, 5 of them I think came in the first half, he shot the lights out. I saw a joke on Twitter that pretty much said, oh, he had back spasms, but then he definitely felt better once he saw how open he was.
Absolutely. That the elixir you need for back pain, wide open shots. So I'll go over a few numbers here, but look no further than this one. Virginia was 14 of 31 from three-point range. Syracuse was 5 of 24 from three-point range. Game, set, and match. You are not going to beat Virginia unless you hit threes. You go back to last year's win that Syracuse had over Virginia, a 63-55 win in overtime. Remember, Syracuse scored a total of 19 points in the second half. They scored 20 in overtime, partially because they were hitting threes. So you need to hit threes. Well, your key three-point shooters are Buddy Boeheim and Joe Girard III. They didn't have it tonight. Joe Girard was 2 of 6 from three-point range. He scores just 8 points on the night. Buddy Boeheim scores 9 points on the night. He's 1 of 8 from three-point range. Buddy really struggled on the offensive end shooting. He turned the ball over a bunch. Joe just not effective, couldn't get into a rhythm. A lot of people calling for Kadari Richmond to get more time. Frankly, he struggled tonight. He turned the ball over a bunch. He could not handle Virginia's defense. He scores just 2 points on the night. Couple of rebounds for him as well. We mentioned a couple of names there. Hauser with 21 points, 7 of 16 for Virginia from three-point range, 7 of 13 from three-point range, 7 of 16 overall. So all his points coming from beyond the arc. Jay Huff, the 7-foot center, 21 points, 8 of 11 from the field, getting so many dunks and easy opportunities around the rim. And Mike, the most telling stat of Syracuse basketball this year, they have 9 wins. In all 9 of those games, they've out-rebounded their opponent. They now have 5 losses, and in all 5 of them, they've been out-rebounded tonight. Virginia outboards Syracuse 41-28. But here's another key stat. 23 of 29 Virginia passes were assisted. 10 of 22 Syracuse baskets were assisted. Big difference in philosophy, particularly in ball movement tonight.
Yeah, and when you take a real look at it, all night, every pass went to the middle of that zone, and that's when the Syracuse defense broke down. Every time Virginia got that ball into the middle of the paint, where that ACC logo is, the defense collapsed, and shooters were wide open. And Virginia just made extra pass after extra pass, and it hurt them in the end.
Which, by the way, Mike, is we see this breakdown every time Syracuse plays on ESPN. If it's Seth Greenberg tonight, it was Jay Billis. They'll do that little breakdown that you just said beautifully. You want to get the ball to the ACC logo, kick out for 3-point shots, or get the shot in the high post, right? And Syracuse was collapsing on that ball early on, but leaving the shooters way too open. They were chasing ghosts all night. They were chasing passes all night. Just a pretty bad overall effort for Syracuse. And I got to wonder why Jesse Edwards did not see any time in this game. You got a 7-foot center in the middle and Jay Huff, who can not only score around the basket, he stepped out, hit a couple of threes in this game. You're telling me you don't have room for a 6'10" player to at least get in there and try and defend that guy and take up some space in the middle of the zone, as you're saying, which was very vulnerable tonight. I mean, Virginia worked it inside and out. We mentioned it, Hauser on the outside, Huff on the inside, a couple other guys that scored for Virginia tonight. But I was really surprised, even for Jim Boeheim, who we know doesn't go deep down his bench, that Jesse Edwards didn't see any time in this game tonight.
Yeah, Jesse Edwards would have been a tremendous help on defense for Syracuse today. It just his long length and long frame. You got to think he would have been able to break up some of those lob passes that Virginia kept throwing. I think they had probably 3 or 4 lobs in the first 5 minutes of the game. Clark finished with 9 assists, their point guard, 5'9" point guard. And they actually threw the ball to him in that mid area of the court as well. I saw that late in the second half, but yeah, Jim Boeheim had played 6 players probably up until the midway point of the second half. And that 6th player was Kadari Richmond outside the starters. He's not willing to play anyone else outside of who he says plays well in practice.
And that's it. Jim said that in the postgame press conference. He was asked specifically about Woody Newton. Was he healthy or not? And Jim said, we're playing the guys that are playing best in practice, the standard Boeheim go-to line when he's asked about playing time. Well, matchups matter too. Maybe Woody Newton, he helps you. He doesn't. It does not feel like Syracuse kind of went all hands on deck here to try and win this game. It's almost like Boeheim kind of conceded that they're better. He even said in the press conference that, hey, they're a top 10 team and we're not. We'll learn from this one. So, yeah, we'll see about that, what they learn, because they got a long layoff until the next time they hit the court, Mike. They're going to play NC State Sunday night at 6 o'clock, which, by the way, as I told Mike, can you pick a worse time for a game than Sunday night at 6 o'clock? That's what's worse, that or the 9:30 tip times. It's a tough debate.
But at least, and I hate to say this right now, at least your Buffalo Bills aren't playing that day.
Yeah, I had the same thing in mind. At least I'm not going to miss any Buffalo Bills games because the next Bills game is until September. But good season, boys. Good season. Can't beat Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City kicking field goals. And that's all I'll say about that. Let's see what you guys are saying out there on the comments. Always love to hear where you're watching us from, by the way, so make sure you tell us that. Dave notes that this was a night and day effort from this team. Virginia made a lot of threes, but most of them were wide open, and certainly that was the case tonight. William saying this team can't compete against strong rebounding teams. On top of that, they can't shoot threes very well. And, Mike, that surprises me, to be honest with you. Buddy Boeheim's really struggling from three-point range. Joe Girard just can't get the open looks. He's easy to defend with teams that, have defensive philosophy, certainly like Virginia. Alan Griffin, some games he has it, some games he doesn't. He scored tonight but wasn't shooting from three-point range. Quincy can step back, sometimes hit a three. Robert Braswell came in and hit a couple of threes. He also picked up a couple of quick fouls in this game. They have shooters. They're just not connecting. And Jim Boeheim sounds like a broken record. He said it again tonight. We got the looks. They just weren't dropping.
Yeah, it seems like they have the same problem as the Syracuse women's team, because that team isn't shooting well right now either. And I just want to mention with the zone defense, sometimes I like to see Boeheim kind of switch it up a little bit and try to confuse these offenses. Coach Q, over the past few games, he's actually been switching from zone defense to man-to-man pretty much on a regular basis towards the end of the shot clock. I like to see Coach Boeheim kind of implement that type of strategy just to see how it works, but I don't think we'll see that anytime soon.
They did press tonight, and anytime Syracuse presses, they're desperate. Yeah. And Sean McDonough brought it up on the ESPN broadcast. Like, the one time in history it worked was when Syracuse beat Virginia in the 2016 Elite Eight, and Virginia had a huge lead. Syracuse put on the press. Malachi Richardson. Let's see if I can do the goggles thing. Hitting the threes, right? That's going to be a screenshot somewhere on the internet.
Yeah, that's perfect right there.
And Syracuse comes back, but that's like the one time it worked against Virginia, right? Typically, you're in desperation mode trying to do that. Jim Boeheim switching things up like that, I'd like to see it too. Not likely, right? It's kind of a pipe dream on our part for that to happen, but they don't even switch things up offensively, switch things up in the lineup. It's almost like he just kind of says, okay, well, this plan didn't work, on to the next one. Antonio says every team has their best three-point night against Syracuse. The zone is yesterday. We score 2, they score 3. That's the 2-3 zone. I like that interpretation there. Jermaine checks in to say, I really hope by now, I'm sorry, where are we here? I really hope by now Syracuse fans would have learned, especially the past few seasons, they're not going to get in the tournament, nor are they getting back on track with Boeheim. He's lost it and doesn't know what to do. I mean, at the very least, they picked up a quality win against Virginia Tech, came in with some confidence in this one. But, Mike, I think, and I don't want to make excuses here, you got to play better than this, but Virginia's the kind of team you want a few days of practice to get in a certain mentality against. You beat Virginia Tech Saturday, turn around, go on the road, play Virginia. That's a tough team to play on a short turnaround. Again, I don't want to make excuses there, but, if you could pick a team you don't want to play on short notice, they'd probably be at the top of your list.
Absolutely. I don't think anyone probably would have picked Syracuse to win this game, seeing as Virginia is playing lights out, especially from 3, and they're leading in the ACC. But you're right. You don't want to play a team like this, especially when you've just beat a really good Virginia Tech team on Saturday.
If I could steal a Bills reference for a second, what I was frustrated in watching that football game was the Bills tried to beat Patrick Mahomes with defense and field goals. It's not going to happen. You got to win with offense.
Yeah.
As bad as Syracuse's defense was, Mike, you got to hit threes against this team, and you have to take advantage of those possessions. And 5 of 24 from 3-point range. I mean, that's just it. That's the story of this game. You cannot shoot that bad against anybody, let alone Virginia, and expect to be competitive.
Yeah. At this point, how does Syracuse get better looks? Because I think that's what it has to be. They're getting semi-decent looks. They're kind of open, but how can Jim Boeheim run a play for this offense to get Buddy Boeheim a wide open 3?
He's getting the looks. That's the thing. That's got to be the frustrating thing from his end is Buddy had looks tonight and just wasn't hitting. You got to fight fire with fire and move the ball better. Syracuse actually came into this game averaging, I think it was 15 assists per game, something like that. They're one of the top teams in the ACC, but for some reason just, didn't match that intensity tonight for Virginia. I mean, Virginia put on a clinic. They always pass the ball well, but tonight it was really something to see, especially with Hauser getting open time after time after time. Matt says lack of ball movement, speaking of which, is a killer for this team. The year started promising, albeit against inferior opponents, but ball movement was great. It's fallen off, and it shows. It's got to stop with Buddy. He's playing bad, one of the worst. His game isn't to take it to the rim, and it certainly won't work against Virginia. Need movement and screens to get shooters open, and someone who actually can get to the rim and break down the defense. That person is Richmond. Now, Matt's not wrong in that sense. Mike, tonight, though, Richmond couldn't do it. He turned the ball over. Yeah. He struggled. I'm sorry. Look, Kadari Richmond, I think, should play more. I'm not disagreeing with what Matt is saying there kind of on a macro level, but on a micro level tonight, he didn't play well. So we got to be fair about that. Kadari Richmond just seems to be like this magician to Syracuse fans that's going to come in and fix everything. He's still a freshman, and he's still going to have bad games against good teams, and we saw that tonight.
Yeah, my big takeaway with his turnovers tonight, it seemed like every time he tried to make a pass, he jumped in the air. And Boeheim benched him for turning the ball over in one instance where he jumped to pass and he turned the ball over. And then Gerard turned the ball over on the very next play. He yanked him and brought Richmond back in. So he definitely has to get control of how he's passing the ball. He doesn't have to leave the floor every time he wants to make a pass.
Jim says, how do you get cleaner looks? You set screens, which is typically what Syracuse does, but there's got to be some pop in those screens. There's got to be some hustle in that screens. There's got to be some grit in those screens. And by the way, a few of you I've seen have brought it up here. Where's Jesse Edwards? That's a guy that can set some screens. I'm not saying Jesse's going to come in and, like we were saying about Kadari, save the day, but the fact he doesn't even play, unless there's some injury or something I don't know about, let's be fair. Maybe there could be something there. You always have to put that into the conversation, but that really boggles me on that sense. And look, Syracuse is a pretty simple team, Mike, on offense. They run the same 4 or 5 plays. They're going to set those screens, but they didn't even do that tonight. They couldn't, again, Virginia, you got to fight fire with fire. You got to play with grit and hustle and not only match what they do, but do what you do well. And it just, you go down the checklist and Syracuse couldn't do any of those things tonight. Lisa says, change Joe to the shooting guard. Team needs to improve their defense. Again, I don't hate that idea, but ideally that puts Kadari at the point, and Kadari struggled. So when all 3 of your guards are having a bad game, as was the case really tonight, you're kind of stuck, right? It didn't hurt you in the last game because Syracuse killed Virginia Tech in the paint because their matchups worked out so well, but we knew that would not be the case tonight.
Yeah, another point guard isn't coming through that door anytime soon. So I think Syracuse is limited to the guards they have. And one thing that stuck out to me, well, I've said it before. If you want your players to get better, you got to play them. The only way they're going to get experience is if you give them the opportunity to play in situations like this. And you got to put Jesse Edwards in there. You got to put Robert Braswell in there, give him some more minutes. And like you said, we don't know what's up with Woody Newton, but you got to let him loose.
Jim said he was healthy. He was asked in the postgame press conference, and he said, we're playing the guys that are playing well at practice, which again is the standard Boeheim answer to anything that way. But Mike, so this game, you're coming down the stretch, you're down 12, 14, 16 points. They don't play. Go back to the last game. You're up 12, 14, 16, end up winning by 18 points over Virginia Tech. Those guys aren't in the game then either. It's just, look, I know I'm kind of talking to a wall here in a way because Jim Boeheim's probably the most stubborn coach I've ever seen when it comes to his rotations and playing only 6 or 7 guys. But to not even put him in there when the matchups work, I'm not even saying put him in there just to get him time. This isn't JV basketball. It doesn't work that way. The matchups would work in that case. You're telling me Woody Newton couldn't provide a spark? Again, assuming he's healthy enough to play. Jesse, 6'11" with 5 fouls to give, can't guard Jay Huff. More from Braswell. But by the way, your 3-point shooting stunk. And Braswell didn't even come in until, I think it was like 5 or 6 minutes into the second half. Correct me if I'm wrong. But, man, way too little too late on a lot of things.
Yeah, and looking big picture here, you got NC State coming down. That's your next game on Sunday. I don't think this loss hurts their tournament chances, but if they would have won, it definitely would have been a really big resume builder to get back-to-back wins over nationally ranked teams. And
they kind of had their groove back coming into this game. That's the thing that stinks about it from a Syracuse standpoint, because they rolled Miami, held them to 57 points, rolled Virginia Tech, held them to 60. I think Syracuse fans just wanted to see a strong effort against Virginia, knowing it'd be tough to beat a top 10 team. It's a team they've managed to play well against in recent years, even beat in recent years, but it was just a flat kind of thud effort from the Orange. And like you said, Mike, your tournament resume is not going to kill you because, Virginia is going to be a tough team for a lot of teams to beat. Frankly, they've won 7 in a row. The last game they lost was to Gonzaga, and everyone's losing to Gonzaga this year. That team's a juggernaut this season. So NC State is one of those teams that's kind of in the same area as Syracuse in the ACC standings. So that's kind of a take care of business game. Then you get Clemson, or before that you get Louisville, which would qualify as a quality win, would probably fall into quad 2 at this point. And Clemson's fallen apart before our very eyes here. As it stands now, it would probably be a quad 2 win. But so this was the road game. Miami, Virginia Tech, home games, road game, and those other 2 I mentioned, all at home. So a stretch starting with Miami, 4 of 5 at home. Syracuse is going to have to maintain that. And that's the thing tonight. Syracuse fell to 1-4 on the road, and the tournament committee is going to be looking for road wins, quality road wins, to separate you from the pack.
Yeah, something I just thought of really quick. I noticed in the previous 2 or 3 games, we've seen Marek Dolezaj be way more aggressive and look to score at the basket. I didn't see any of that tonight. He finished with 8 points. He was 3 of 6 from the field, 2 free throws. But I think he definitely has to be more aggressive going forward.
That's a great point. We didn't even mention Marek in this one. And last time he was aggressive because the lanes were there. 18 points. He got to the free throw line 8 times against Virginia Tech, made all 8 of those. And what an improvement he's made there, Mike. He was like a 59% free throw shooter a couple of years ago. He's up around 80% now. He had, I think, 8.6 rebounds tonight, but it's weird how Marek kind of goes in those waves, and Jay Huff and a couple guys are tougher for him to get by than what Virginia Tech threw at him the other night, but it is strange how Marek kind of goes in waves on that note. I'll tell you what, I think we'll end on that note right there. As Mike mentioned, we're going to have a little bit of time between now and our next post-game show. Sunday night, when Syracuse takes on NC State, that's a 6 o'clock start. We'll be with you live after the game, thanks to our friends at Krause Health. But again, if you do miss these live chats, we pop on here about 20 minutes or so after the game, after some post-game festivities and getting things ready for you. We do archive this on the Syracuse Orange Sports page on YouTube. Subscribe to that so you get the video. I embed it on my recap, on syracuse.com. We put it up on social media. Lots of great places to catch it in case you do miss it. So you guys enjoy your week. We'll be back at you Sunday night after the Orange take on NC State. Please check out all of our coverage on syracuse.com here tonight, on Monday, and through the day on Tuesday. Thank you, Mike. We'll talk to you next time, buddy.
Thanks, man. See you guys later. Take care.